coffee. I hope everybody's sufficiently caffeinated for this presentation. And yeah, thanks for making it despite the weather. I don't know about you, but I have ran into some serious traffic for a few days. But we all braved it through, and hopefully this will be entertaining and informative. If you have questions as we go along, raise your hand. Audience participation is welcome. I will need help on the managing time. That's a limited weakness of mine, so we'll keep an eye on that. Let me tell you a little about the APA Center, Austin Psychology and Assessment Center. We provide assessments, therapy, and consultation, 3 to adult. We've been in Austin since 2007. I went to University of Texas at Austin. Can't believe we beat the season. Oh my God. I then stayed here in Austin like a lot of people. Once I moved up here, fell in love, and I've stayed since. And I did a lot of my graduate work out in Eames. I was a school psychologist out in Eames for several years. Did a lot of my internship and practical work there, and was employed there as a school psychologist for a couple of years. And then in 2004, went into private practice. In 2007, I formed Austin Psychology Assessment Center, or APA Center. So we work with people 3 to adult, so we go down pretty low. We do individual therapy, couples therapy, family therapy, and then we use a bunch of different evidence-based practices in our therapy listed out here. We tend to be client-centered and strengths-based, so not just looking at what's wrong with people, but what's right with people too, and how to build on those strengths. We provide a lot of assessments, psychological assessments, neuropsychological assessments, psychoeducational, kind of kids are struggling in school for one reason or another, learning difficulties, ADHD, things like that, and parents are looking for solutions and what will help their kids overcome those challenges and achieve perfection. Word that people can call it that way. And something that sets us apart from most places is when we do assessments, generally it's the licensed psychologist who does the entire evaluation, including the testing. And then our psychologists also are licensed specialists in school psychology, so we have this added background that a lot of other psychologists have, that we've worked in schools and worked with students and teachers and administrators and understand accommodations and what helps kids overcome their challenges. And then also form Austin ABA Connect, and we provide applied behavior analysis for children 1 through 12 who are on the autism spectrum, and then behavioral support in-home or at school, behavioral support for kids with various types of behavioral difficulties. And Dr. Amanda Buteau is our clinical director, and she's got 20 years of experience and has worked a lot in the Eames area with a lot of districts around Austin, and she teaches at Texas State University. So I have some brochures and things in the back, and also I've got a sign-in sheet that I'd like to pass around. At the end, I'd like to send you all an email, a survey about the presentation. I'm always aiming for professional presentations, but always fall short. And I like to get feedback, so if there are things I can do better the next time around, I'd love to hear it, and so the next group can benefit from your feedback. And also, I know a lot of you know, there's a lot of things I'll cover, and you might be wanting to take notes or frantically taking notes. What I'll do is, if you sign in and you put your email down, I'll do a summary of the main points here, the takeaway points, so that you'll have that handy. I don't have it just this moment, but I will. So what we're going to cover today: definition of perfectionism, some on the nature of suffering, myth perceptions about being perfect, facts of life versus perfectionism, and lastly, what we can do about it. I love this quote by Voltaire, and I've got 3 kids myself, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and I'm, I guess, a recovering perfectionist, work in progress there, and I can see it in my kids. I think, where does it come from? It's part nature, part nurture. We're trying to figure out, what's the biggest percentage. You kind of forget about that, but both come into play. Importantly, there's something we can do about it. Like anything else, if we work at something, we get better at it, and including perfectionism. So hopefully those are some tools for your toolkit that you can take away from this presentation. So what is perfectionism? I just kind of cobbled this together. I mean, it seems to make sense to me. The belief which becomes an insatiable drive in some that doing something perfectly or exactly right will result in blank. So that's one of the questions here. So got a few words that I interspersed in my presentation. You're trying to get that. How many of you trying to get that perfect family photo, and something inevitably goes wrong? I remember when UT finally won the national championship in 2005, and I had my son, who was 2.5 at the time, went to the towers, lit number 1. It's like, get pictures. He's doing the hookup. I taught my son that, already. And I was like, all right, hookup, he would not do it. I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect photo. When are we ever going to win the national championship again? Could not get him to do it. He was just smiling with his hand up in the air. He's like, what can you do? So, one of the questions that's kind of embedded here with perfectionism is, what is it that we're trying to get with this drive for perfectionism? And sometimes that's kind of lost in things. It's just like, oh, I gotta get this perfect, Why? And if we really look at it, it's a real interesting question, and suddenly we can see that the drive for perfection is a bit of smoke and mirrors. So, person had a great shot at this photo, and they're going to feel it in half a second after they took this picture. It's a pretty good shot, though. So, some on the nature of suffering, and I have a book list back there, and as Georgia was asking me, what influences presentation. Well, I'd say, working with folks in the mental health field for 20 years in various ways. I've done a lot of reading on happiness and positive psychology. I don't know if you've run into that, but in positive psychology for 100 years, psychology is focused on what's wrong with people and pathology and disorders and disabilities. And then in the 1990s, Martin Seligman and a few others were like, hey, wait a second, something's missing from this equation. Why are people happy? It seems like a no-brainer when we look at it, but really psychology did not look at that. Hardly at all before the 1990s. Now there's a lot of books on it and research, so I pulled a lot from that. And I like Buddhist psychology. I'm not a Buddhist, but they have some interest. I don't know, anybody read Art of Happiness? Dalai Lama's really good book. And there's a lot out there like that. It really crosses over very well. Anybody heard of cognitive behavior therapy? And how that works basically is that the way people view things affects our feelings about it. And if we have distorted perspectives or thoughts about something, then we'll have distorted feelings. And part of the idea behind cognitive behavioral therapy and a lot of Buddhist psychology is to try to see things accurately. And if we see things accurately, it's going to change the way we feel about things and change our behavior. So it's kind of like a, fairly simple equation, what we're shooting for here. Another photo fail there. I hate when that happens. Let's see. hard to get that perfect photo. But you know, it makes for some pretty good laughs when they don't turn out right. So the many myths embedded in perfectionism. A lot of suffering that comes from the pursuit of perfection comes from these myths to begin with. And learning that they're myths and acting according to reality can free people from the suffering that they cause. So we're going to go through some of these myths. And as we're doing this, part of the exercise is that I want you to do your own reflection on the questions I'm asking, because it's not because I'm saying it's true. It's true independently of me or anybody else. And when you reflect on your own experiences, you'll see that a lot of what I'm saying is true. And this can also be something that you use to help yourself and your kids. You get them thinking about these sorts of things. And when I work with clients in my therapy, I've worked with so many clients that are anxious or depressed, and in some way tied to perfectionism. Like, if I could just do things right, if I could just be at this party and everybody would like me, if I could just, nail this presentation, if I only were better at all these things, then I would like myself. If I just need to be so much better than I am, then I'd be worthy of liking myself, and other people might like me too. So one of the funny things is perfection, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. So when you start looking at, what is perfection, what's the perfect student? We could ask that. And, you get some agreement, but there'd be some disagreement too. What's the perfect son or daughter? What's kind of the spouse? What's a perfect spouse? Is it someone who agrees with everything we say? Yeah, I see some head nods. Yeah. But sometimes, that'd be really boring. And you want someone with their own personality. No, I'm wrong about that one. Now, as parents, right, we're trying to be the perfect parents. What pressure that is. Like, we're trying to do everything right all the time for our kids. And, that's good. It's not to say that we shouldn't strive for excellence, but when it becomes this idea about perfection, it gets us into all sorts of trouble. And it can create a lot of anxiety as parents. The employee, and you can see how some of these things conflict. If I'm a boss and I'm looking at, what's the perfect employee, maybe not me, but some might say 70 hours a week, they work weekends and they don't do holidays or whatever, they don't take off for family time because I need a beer, job is number one. Well, that would conflict with many of the spouses. What's the perfect spouse? Well, they don't work 70 hours a week, so how can you have both if, they totally conflict? The perfect vacation. There's many different ideas about what a perfect vacation is, and we're always trying to arrange those. We talk to different people, and some people want a rugged wilderness vacation and, toughing it out in the woods, and some are like, no way, I want to be in a posh resort with, a pina colada in my hand and white sandy beaches, and to say, well, which is the perfect one? And, when we step back, we just look at how perfectionism really is. There's so many different perspectives of what that idea is. So there is no one ideal. How about our government? What would the perfect government be like? I think there'd be a pretty good consensus that they would be able to get along enough to pass legislation. It's just ridiculous. How much time do we have left before the floor drops? A day or something? Can we all get along? Rodney King was right. So myth number 2, people would like you more if you were perfect. So when we look at, one of the questions we can ask about this is, who do we like best? Why are our friends our friends? And it isn't because they're perfect. I don't know about you, but my friends have flaws. And I know they view me as having flaws too. But that's when I see this a lot, people are anxious socially, is they're wanting to be, really good at everything, because then people will like them. But there's a fundamental myth about that. that misperception is that people don't like people because they're perfect. We like other people because they treat us well, are nice, and we have similar interests and stuff. Really, we reflect on it, and it's very true. And so if we can kind of dislodge that from our brains, it helps us get along a lot better and relieve some anxiety of always trying to impress people. There's a big difference between being admired for something as a musician, like someone might be a great musician, and we could admire them for their talent, but they could absolutely be a horrible person to hang out with. And you run into people like that, they're super smart, they might have gone to Harvard or wherever, and they could be super talented. Sometimes you hear of Hollywood celebrities like that, they're so talented, but if you sat down to eat dinner with them or something like that, it'd be just an awful experience. And our kids so often are so focused on being really good at something so people will like them. But if we look at, really ask them and ask ourselves and ask them, it's like, who do they like? Who are their friends? Why are they their friend? Is it because they're the best baseball player on the team? Well, you might admire them for that, but that's not why they're their friend. And this is something kind of ironic that the research found, is that because we don't view ourselves as perfect, we don't tend to relate well with people who we view as too perfect. It creates like a psychological distance between us, because we look at our own flaws and we feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much that I have to do. When we see someone else that we put on a pedestal because we view them as perfect, it's kind of off-putting. There's I don't know if anybody ran into the story about JFK and the Bay of Pigs fiasco back when Cuba was becoming communist, and we tried to help the rebels overthrow the communists. And so this was JFK's plan, and it was turned out horribly. And ironically, his approval ratings went up after the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And when the social scientists were looking at, how on earth did this happen? This is just a debacle. What they found was he was viewed as too perfect, with Camelot and his looks and the money and the name and everything like that. And when he messed up in a major way in front of the whole world, people felt like he was more human and they could relate to it more. So the irony is, people might like you less if you were perfect, which, you're thinking, what? But it's true, it can be off-putting. People wouldn't want to be around you. So here's another big myth. If we were perfect, we'd be constantly happy. So let me just ask people, some volunteers, some of your happiest times. Anybody want to share, a really good time that you had in your life that you wouldn't mind sharing with everybody? I went to ACL on the first weekend of fourth grade, and my best friend from Houston came up in town, and we got to go see a bunch of bands and reminisce and make new memories. And I was like, this is just awesome, And in a way, yeah, we didn't always have everything perfect, like the perfect view, perfect temperature or stuff like that. But at the same time, I had a wonderful time. Some family vacations. I don't know, I've been to Hawaii a couple times, and oh my God, I fell in love. There was a slice of heaven there. Anybody else? Always had good times in life. What an unhappy life. Okay, well, tough audience here. We're perfectly cracked, y'all. So, look, and just ask inwardly, and you can answer inwardly if you don't want to answer outwardly. It's fine. You don't have to be the perfect on the inside. You look, how many have to do with perfection? You look at your own happiest times in life, and a lot of them you stumble across. A lot happen to us, and it ends up in a weird way being like perfect. I remember my wife and I went to France, and we went to Chamonix, and I'm not a big world traveler, but when I think of some of my happiest times, though, a lot have to do with vacations and family time. And I remember we were on our balcony in Chamonix, and the Alps were out there. We had a baguette and a bottle of wine, and I was like, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. What's better than that? And another time we were in Paris, and we'd just gotten there, and we went to I think it was Rodin's museum. Looking at the sculptures. Started raining, and we just got there. We were like diving in, like trying to run through and see all the sculptures. They're world famous, but we're doing it in 5 minutes. And then we dodged into a cafe and had an espresso. And but at the same time, it was perfect in its way. And it's weird how life is like that. Watching your baby smile, how happy that can make us. Sunset, traveling, see, and experience new things, coffee with friends. Going at ACL, got to see The Cure. It was just like heaven. I surfed in Hawaii. It's one of my bucket list items. I don't know if any of you surf, but I'm not good at it. But it still was perfect when I got up. It was just one of those transcendent things. And any good surfer would look like, oh my God, it's just a beginner. He's barely able to stand up. But that didn't detract from it being a transcendent experience for me. I had one of the, I was going to dig it up myself, but I had one of those in my youngest when we were going to the Renaissance Festival, and we began to pull over, and my little fellow was looking cute, so I was taking pictures, and then like right in the middle, he just, spit up all over the place. And it was a good Facebook post, though. I got a lot of comments on that one. So myth number 4, your perfection is the focus of people's attention. So I'll ask you this. Think of someone who did something perfect. All right. Anybody got anything? Okay, how about like let's take Michael Phelps winning 8 gold medals, right? That's as close to perfection. He won every event, right? Okay, and he world records. He set most gold medals, beat Mark Spitz, right? That's pretty. Okay. Now, how much of your daily life do you think of Michael Phelps winning those 8 gold medals? Do you think of it at all? When was the last time you thought of it? He was the media all over. It's a magazine, Sports Illustrated, whatever, it's a Wheaties box, everything. That's just the pinnacle of the sport and Olympic fame, and we don't think about it. Now, think of our own times. We did something to perfection, like we were in the zone. You ever played a sport, or if you're a musician, like you had a transcendent moment or time that you were totally in the zone? Anybody think of anything? I'm gonna crack this audience. I want to get one audience participant before the day is done. That's my goal. Who wants to be the first? No pressure. No one did anything. How about something? I remember in high school, I played tennis, and I played doubles in this one tournament, and we got to the finals barely. Had this really tough match. My partner and I were in the finals, and we won 6-0, 6-0, which I've never done before. We were totally in the zone. It was just insane the way both of us played. We were totally in sync, and it was, oh my God, it was amazing. But then, how much do I think of that on a daily basis? Think about it now because I'm telling you the story, but if you don't count that, not very often. So even your own experiences, when you reflect reflect on your pinnacle of excellence, the best presentation you've ever given, or whatever, the best report you ever wrote for college. You don't think about it, and guess what? Your professor isn't thinking about it either. Whatever happiness you got from it doesn't last, even when we have it. We experience it, that's fine, but it doesn't last. It goes away. That's the nature of things. So others, we're not thinking of our own perfection. Others aren't thinking of ours. And the other, if we flip it, and with clients I do this, like with embarrassing moments, we think of, you could ask, think of someone else's most embarrassing moment. Okay? Everybody think for a second. Think back to all the goofy things that happened in high school and college. Okay? This is an exercise, so even though you don't have to write for this, but the gears should be turning. Okay. Who can think of an embarrassing moment of someone else? You don't have to say your own. Oh, participant! Wait, like gold star.
So I was a senior in high school, maybe, and I was at a big formal event, and someone that I went to school with was at the top of the stairs. This was like a black tie, everyone was really dressed up. Maybe she was a little drunk, maybe, but she literally fell down college. Fell down an entire flight of stairs.
Oh,
I mean, in
front of everybody.
yeah, it was underwear and
Now, so we could ask how often on a daily basis you think of that. You really don't. So even at our worst, or someone else's, we don't think of other people's worst. We don't. It just, we may notice it for a day or two, or think about it, tell a story, but it doesn't stick. And neither do our worst moments stick with others. We're really not the focus of people's attention for any lasting time. So when we say, what do these exercises tell us? What do they mean? Is why invest all of this time and energy to achieve perfection when people don't really even notice or care? Oh, no. Mr. Olympian for like 7 years. I don't think he looks like that now, anything. So here's a big one, is perfection is a means to an end, but not the end in itself. And this is something we get caught in, like chasing this will-o'-the-wisp or something, red herring, maybe that's a better term, of perfection, when perfection is a means to a greater end. If we got perfection in anything, just name it, what does that lead to? It's happiness. Happiness is the answer. Happiness is the only goal that we seek for itself, for no other purpose. So if you say, beauty, wealth, winning contests, fame, you name it, anything, if you press, why get a good education so I could, achieve something great and get a great job. Why get that? Well, then I could, a lot of people like me. Well, what would you get if a lot of people liked you and admired you? Well, happy. It all leads back to this goal of happiness. Happiness is the greater master and the master of perfection. So the wrong question is, when people are focused on achieving perfection, it's the wrong question to ask. It should be about achieving happiness. It took me a minute when I first saw this photo. I was like, oh, yeah. Watch where you're doing this. Happiness comes from progress, not perfection. So when we're looking at the facts of the case, we have the myths, the facts. What fun would any endeavor be if you were absolutely perfect at it every time? It wouldn't be fun at all. It would be quite boring. Who'd want to play the sport with you? I were a tennis master and I, could hit every ball in every single time, or a golfer who got a hole in one every single time. It'd be amazing for a while. It'd be, oh my God, this guy's on a tear. It's just unbelievable. A hole in one in every shot. what happened after a while, they just disqualify that guy from the tournament. You know, they'd say, oh, we can't have him. It's boring. He wins every tournament, every single time by a huge margin. There's no drama anymore. And that's what makes life fun and exciting, is the drama. And then, you know, when we improve at anything, you can, again, reflect on your own experiences of trying to get better at anything you have in life, any sport, any musical instrument, writing, is that you see that the sense of accomplishment comes from improvement and how you feel good about yourself when you can, you know, improve your serve or improve your golf game, whatever it is. This is what gives life purpose and meaning, this struggle to improve and get better. It directs our energies. And then there's this term called fiero that they use. It sort of came from video gaming world, but this triumphant exaltation of like you beat a level or a boss or something like that, where you're like, yeah, arms up, arms raised, is if we were perfect at everything, we wouldn't get that. There wouldn't be the drama there. And from the research on hedonic adaptation, this is on the research on happiness, is this hedonic adaptation is whatever we achieve, we adapt to it. We're very adaptive creatures. We're meant to adapt to things. You know, cold, hot, difficult conditions. We get calluses on our feet if we go barefoot. You know, we adapt. And what they found is happiness is adaptive. Like if you get, you know, a raise in your job and you get a lot more money, at first you feel good, but then you adapt to it. You don't stay happy from any of these changes. They're temporary and transitory. And, you know, they call it the hedonic treadmill. It's like when people keep going to that next thing, thinking, if I only achieve this, then I'll be happy. It's a very, very dangerous mindset to get in. If I only achieve this, if I only get this, then I will be happy. Because, again, reflect on your own experiences. You all have achieved many things in your life. Which one of them has given you lasting happiness, like eternal, forever? You don't. I mean, you can feel proud and a sense of accomplishment, but it doesn't last indefinitely. Unpredictability is exciting. And there's the neuroscience of this is when we're in a state of anticipation of what might happen next, dopamine is a pleasure chemical in the brain. It's released when we're in this state of anticipation. So there needs to be unpredictability in life. Anticipation and progress require a certain level of unpredictability. If we were perfect, this wouldn't be present in certain endeavors. So we want that in life. That life would not be exciting without the unpredictability. And perfection would mean that there isn't that unpredictability. So I had trouble fitting like where to put this in, but see, they should have like done their letter spacing a little better because I don't know how many parents are going to take their kids to the kids sex change. Look at stuff like that. Just like, oh man. You know, sometimes I look at stuff like that, it makes me feel good because I'm like, at least I haven't made that. I have made, you know, the hard knocks of growing your own practice and stuff. You see this, not every dream is to become an Olympic muffin. It says what embryos are babies, and then below it says every egg's dream become an egg. I don't know, those weren't put to, you know, no one's put any thought into the juxtaposition of those two sides. But it makes us laugh. Another fact of life is learning and growth is fun. Learning results in the growth of new synaptic connections in the brain. New neurons can be formed, neurogenesis. So every time we learn, this happens. Our brains are forming new synapses, new neurons. Dopamine is released when we're learning something, which gives us a sense of pleasure in learning. That's why learning can be fun. And it's made to work this way. Our brain is made to have this process go. A learning process, a growth process, feeling good about the growth, and then continuing the learning process. And if we had perfection, there would be no learning, no growth, and no happiness or seriously reduced happiness. So you can see, what I'm kind of building here is it's like a straw man or whatever. The whole perfection is just so full of conceptual holes that, again, if we reflect on them, you don't even need to see a bunch of quantitative data on this. You can reflect on your own experiences, and this can help you in talking to your kids about these things, and we'll get to this in just a second. Aiming for perfection can undermine performance. So I'm not against achieving high standards or excellence. So again, I'm a recovering perfectionist, but I don't know about y'all, but maybe you've experienced this, I have, is when I'm so concerned with doing well, I procrastinate and don't get to what I need to do, because it's like this splinter in my mind of like, I've got to do it just right, and then it becomes like I feel anxious about getting started, because what if it's not just right? What if, it's not that good? And that's where Voltaire's quote, "The perfect is the enemy of the good." I love that quote. I just told my 10-year-old that one. I was asking, you know what that means? Let's think about that. Because I think he's a little chip off the old block sometimes with the perfectionism. So I'm like, let's see if I can help soften this a little bit. We inherently, in perfection, there's no margin for error. It creates a lot of anxiety. You probably see it in kids around you, yourself, your own kids. I see it in me, my kids, my clients that I work with, of just, this obsession of I gotta get it just right. And then they're so anxious about it. And a lot of people, the way they get around that is avoidance, which sort of works, but it actually digs us in deeper, because then if you say, any of you say that research paper for the night before in college or something like that, where you're like, you have weeks or months to do it, and you're like, okay, I'll get to it, and then it's like the night before, and you're like, holy smokes. So I see this a lot. You might see it in your kids. So we want to kind of remove that splinter or thorn of perfection so that they can feel like they can start. It's okay. Good enough is sometimes plenty. Not the perfect temple, but I think God is man down, right? Maybe not make all the highlight reels, but hey, it makes a good video photo. Here's a fact number 6. Most of our happiness in life comes from relationships, not perfection. Again, reflect on your own lives. Look at your own history. How much more fun is it to watch a movie alone versus with friends? Much more fun with friends than alone. Watching House of Cards. Anybody seen that? Oh my God, it's so good. Highly recommended. Watching it with my wife is so much fun. 70% of our happiness comes from relationships. And perfection is a psychological dead end to happiness. And there's research to show that people who pursue wealth, fame, and beauty are actually, even when they achieve it, are less happy, if that's the focus. And then there's this at what cost? So in the drive to achieve perfection, what is getting pushed out of the way? The term from the economics and business world is opportunity cost. When we're investing in one thing, there's only so much time, money, energy we can do that, and something else is getting pushed out of the way. And we need to stop and say, what is that thing getting pushed out of the way? And I'm here to say, if your relationships are getting pushed out of the way, your kids' relationships, then happiness is going to take a hit. And I'm going to insert this, but one of the things I want to say when this thorn of perfectionism is removed, it doesn't lead to people just not working hard. I think ultimately it can help them achieve greatness with it gone in maybe a more true way, because it's not just to please others, it's really looking internally about what's a good fit for that person and what is need satisfying. So mindfulness, anybody heard the term mindfulness? Anybody run into that? It is huge in psychology right now. It comes from not just Buddhism, but like any spiritual tradition has mindfulness built in. Like, when Jesus says, look at the lilies of the field, they neither toil nor spin, he was talking about this concept. It's being in the present moment, non-judgmentally. It helps us reduce a lot of suffering in life. And much of our suffering comes from these thoughts that are bubbling in our heads. And if you're like me, you have like a zillion thoughts going on in your head, all the time. I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to, check my email, I need to, get my tax forms together and take the kids here or there. And it's just like this constant stream going. And if you think of our thoughts like a river, and a river has current, and this could be, its own topic for sure, but it's very, very powerful. If we can try to live a mindful life, and also teach it to our kids. If you think of our thoughts like a river, and a river has current, right? Negative thoughts are like a turbulent current, and we can sometimes fall in and we'll be swept up with whatever the current of our thoughts is. Now, if our thoughts are, I need to go to the store and get some milk and get some bread, that isn't very turbulent. That's, so what? We have those thoughts in our head. But if our thoughts are stuff like, we make a mistake and say, I'm an idiot, nobody's going to like me, this has ruined my career or my life. Now those are very turbulent thoughts, heavy negative thoughts. It's like a turbulent current. And we're going to get swept up with whatever, with that current. What we want in life is not to be in the river, we want to be on the river bank. And this is what mindfulness is about. So everyone who's made a mistake, and I believe that you, all of you and myself, we've done this where we make mistakes and say, oh, such an idiot, one of those. That's fallen into the river. A mindfulness spin on this that's subtle but very powerful is, oh, I'm having a thought that I'm an idiot. That is very different than I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot's in the river. I'm having a thought that I'm an idiot. Now we're the observer of our thoughts, and we're on the riverbank, and we won't be swept up by the content. It's a lifelong process working on mindfulness. I have some books on the book list, the reading list, and can help with that. But I highly encourage looking into that, and it's not anything that conflicts with any religion, really. It enhances whatever your spirituality, whatever. Episcopal Church, I'm Episcopal. And I think it enhances the spiritual life. So here's some things to do. So we had the myths, the facts, what to do. And those other two lead into this. And this is a summary. I'll kind of give you some bullet points, takeaways. And I don't know if that sign-in sheet can be passed around, if it's on the table back there. So one is practice what we preach. If we are wanting our kids to not be little perfectionists, we got to start with ourselves. If we're always trying to get things just right and freaking out when they aren't, what message does that send to our kids? I'd say forget about trying to get your kids not to be perfectionists if you can't dial it down, yourself. And that takes work. It's not easy. Growing up, I'm a psychologist, and I still wig out over stuff. I was like trying to get all the right pictures for this thing, and then yesterday, I'm like, is that a good one? Should I do videos? Should I find some pictures of my family with my baby spitting up instead of that one? Wouldn't that be better? And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to get any sleep. I'll be up here in the lectern just like, done through the presentation. That's the opportunity cost. And so instead, we are to model patience. Tough one, right? Acceptance. We want to give the message to our kids, unconditional love, not conditional. We love you more if you do better and stuff. Now, no parent will say that's our goal, but inadvertently, it's a very easy trap to fall into. Looking for, you get a 96 on a test and you say, oh, right, 96, what'd you miss? Instead of like, hey, how about 96? Self-compassion, not beating up on ourselves for our own mistakes. If we're telling ourselves, even verbalizing it in front of our kids, oh my God, I'm such an idiot, what am I doing? Very critical of ourselves. Our kids are watching that. We want to model forgiveness. Jesus, the golden rule of doing to others as you would have them doing to you, right? You could flip it and say, do unto yourself as you do unto others. A lot of people we're our own worst critics. The negative things we say to ourselves in our heads, sometimes out loud, a lot of times in our heads, you would never say to our best friend, God, you're such an idiot, when they make a mistake. You'd be oh man, I'm so sorry that happened, can I help you out? Don't feel bad, that kind of thing happens to everybody. But we get all this negative, we're down on ourselves, and that's a dangerous place to go, and it's also for modeling our kids. They're picking up on all that. And a good one is to think aloud. This is a great strategy when you make a mistake. Like, oh, oops, made a mistake there. That's okay. I can figure this out still. It'll be good enough. I can still get this good enough. And I'll know for next time. Next time we go on a vacation, I'll make sure to pack blah, blah, blah. Instead of, oh, such an idiot, I forgot my toothbrush. How can I do that? But showing them, I'm getting that perfect packing mode. Like I start gotta get everything. What if I forget something? It's like, my wife's the opposite. She'll just like throw a few things in and be like on her way. And I'll get in like these big suitcases. Like I said, I'm a work in progress too. Show your kids you can laugh at your own mistakes. If we can't laugh at our own mistakes in life, and that's one of the reasons I have these pictures up. It makes life long and hard. It's good to be able to laugh at our mistakes and show them that you learn from them as well. You can do both. That super valid part. I'm just kidding. Try not to it's hard to do, but trying to judge everything as good or bad. This happened, it's good, this happened, it's bad. Shakespeare wrote in Hamlet, psychologists 500 years ago or whatever, there's nothing either good or bad, but our thinking makes it so. And it's very true. Once we judge something as bad, it's going to pull our emotions with it. So we try not to, judge everything as like, this happened, it's bad. Like it rained today, that's bad. Hey, we're in a drought, right? The rain's good. It's all perspective. One of my favorite stories that conveys a very powerful truth, and you might run across it, it's about a Taoist farmer who one night in a rainstorm, he's living in a small village, his best horse runs away. The villagers come to him the next day and they say to the farmer, oh, you're so unlucky. Your best horse ran away, and now how are you going to work the fields and work the land? You're so unlucky. And the farmer looks at them all and he says, maybe. The next day, his horse comes back and brings 4 wild horses with him. And the neighbors in the village go up to the farmer and they say, you're so lucky. Not only did your horse come back, you brought these beautiful horses with it, and now they're yours. Gosh, you're so lucky. The farmer turns to the neighbors and he says, maybe. The next day, his eldest son is trying to break in one of the wild horses. He gets thrown from the horse, breaks his leg. The neighbors go up to the farmer and say, oh, you're so unlucky. Your eldest son broke his leg. Now he's not going to be able to work on the farm with you. Gosh, you're so unlucky. Farmer turns and looks at him all and he says, maybe. The next day, the militia comes knocking door to door, taking every able-bodied young man to go off and fight in a war. And they get to the farmer's house, see his eldest son with a broken leg passing by. All the villagers go to the farmer and say, you're so lucky that your son broke his leg. Now he didn't have to go fight in the war. He turns to him and he says, maybe. So there's a really powerful truth there in how life has this weird way of working out for the better, even when a failure or setback, looks like a bad thing. Again, you can probably look at your own lives where a job or something, or you can look at a relationship before you met your, spouse to be. This relationship that you were so torn up that it, broke up, and oh my gosh, I'll never love again. And then, hey, it's a good thing that it broke up because then, you ended up meeting yours together. When you do evaluate, judge the action, not the person, rather than, I'm an idiot. You say, that was an idiotic mistake, that's too strong. But, not labeling ourselves or our kids about you're bad or good or, you stink or you're great, because that can be really heavy. It's just looking at the action, the situation. I'm not a fan of always do your best, always try your best. I get very, achieve your potential. I just want, my son to achieve his potential. I just want my daughter to always try her best. It sounds good, but when we really look at it, what does that mean? Always try your best? Everything, you're pouring your breakfast cereal, you're making oatmeal, how deep does this rabbit hole go? I had a professor in graduate school. He told us it's more important to work smart and not just hard. And that really stuck with me because I worked really hard at some things that actually didn't matter all that much. And I'd be spending all this time, and then there's something else that was a lot more important to work on. I think it's better in life to decide strategically what's important to work hard on, and when is good enough. That's just fine. We can even go at this level of effort, and that's fine. It fits the situation. But then some situations, it's really important, to do well. Now we work super hard. Remember that opportunity cost. Sometimes good enough is just fine. The research on fostering a growth mindset, Carol Dweck did all this research, so here's the takeaway. Do not tell your kids they're smart or good at anything. Don't say, you're such a good artist, you're such a great chess player, you're such a great mathematician or great at mathematics, such a great storyteller. What they found, it is not good to tell kids how great they are. There's this movement, years ago about self-esteem, and it's so important to boost kids' self-esteem. No, it's not. It's not good. Sociopaths have high self-esteem. A lot of bullies have high self-esteem. That's not what we want. What they found by praising kids on things that are viewed as innate, like intelligence or ability, when they've done these clever experiments, I won't bore you with the details now, but what happens is kids try, when they're faced with challenging tasks, they don't try as hard. Because they have this idea, I'm really smart. I'm really smart. This is difficult. But when I'm really smart, this is difficult. If I'm really smart, this shouldn't be difficult. I don't do that. Because then their identity is being intelligent and good at something is jeopardized. It's much better, they call it a fixed mindset. So you don't focus on, you're such a talented musician. Do not say that. Such a talented artist, such a smart kiddo. focus on effort. Don't focus on the results as much, but focus on the effort. You worked really hard on that painting. I can tell. Gosh, look at all the colors and the detail there. How long did you spend on this? Did you learn any new techniques as you were doing it? Those are much better questions, because guess what? Effort is something we can control. Intelligence, ability, you're innately a gifted athlete. You can't control that. There's nothing you can do about that. And one of the books in I recommend, Talent is Overrated. The research is it's much more effort than talent. Even chess prodigies, musical prodigies, you name it, effort matters more than innate ability across the board. Art, it just, Mozart, and anybody read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers? Good book about the 10,000 hour rule. You want to be an expert in anything, 20 hours a week, 10 years equals 10,000 hours. Now you're an expert. There is no chess prodigy, no musical prodigy, including Mozart, that did it for 1 year, and they created a masterpiece. It never happened. There's no chess grandmaster that played for 6 months. Not even close. Focus on growth, fun, skill development instead. So remind your child about the myths and facts. Ask them questions. Name the perfect person, the perfect outcome, perfect performance. Ask them, how often do you think about it? How often do they think of their own best moments? These are some of the questions. I'll put those in what I send to you. And, it's the truth, these things. And if you can ask these questions, what happens is they will see the truth. Set them free, right? It's often said we should enjoy the journey, not just the destination. Why are you saying that? Any answers? So Grand Canyon, remember National Lampoon's Vacation with Chevy Chase? Gets to the Grand Canyon, it's like, well, there it is. All right, let's go. The journey is usually a lot longer. When that old saying about we need to stop and smell the roses kind of thing. A lot of times on our trips, weird things happen. We find, we can see they're always there for us to experience. And trying to achieve the excellence can be part of the fun. That's a part of the journey of life that we're trying, and sometimes it's the best part. There's, what is this piece of, this building now where, probably the person who created it was like, hey! I don't want to say that in Italian. Yeah. Lots of friends and mocking him. It's like, yeah, that's a pretty cruddy tower you built there. But now, it's regarded as world renowned as a piece of art. Something to see. So, that's what I got. I'll have some, those takeaway points. If you have questions, you can come up afterwards and ask. I'm not in a rush to leave. If you have some follow-up. When I send the survey out, I'd love to get feedback. I'm not always hitting the right note. I have thick skin. I don't take it personally. If, I bored you to tears. Sorry, but the feedback can help me. If you're like, oh my God, that's such an inappropriate picture. There were some I was looking at, oh my God, that's so funny, that's so inappropriate. I can't put that up there. So I restrained myself from other ones. But yeah, any feedback, and on there too, that I always appreciate Google or Yelp reviews if you care to. If you thought it stunk, just tell me personally, because I don't like those. Those are forever. Any last last question?
One thing I think about with our kids, with the generation coming up, is all the, like, Facebook and Instagram and look how many likes I have, you know, from a very young age. How do you address that? Because it's almost creating that, you know, that need to be liked when these kids are really, really young in a very public way.
Yeah.
And I feel like I already see them, you know, really focused on that. How do you?
That's a tough one, because I think that's it's different than it used to be. You know, popularity now, there's a visibility to it. My son was struggling with that some too. I think, asking who their friends really are and who they like to enjoy spending time with. What would you get if you were popular? What would that get you? Okay, you want to be popular. What would that get you? Well, that means people like me. Okay, why do you want people to like you? Just kind of press in. Yeah, having a conversation or a dialogue about it. Because when we look at the face values, popular's fine, but even then, all those likes on Facebook. One is we can't, the friends. We can only have the social science research says about 150 fairly close relationships. So anyone who has 1,000 friends, I'm sorry, you don't have 1,000 friends. You may have that. I bet those people couldn't even name. If they saw the faces of the 1,000 people without the name, wouldn't be able to name a bunch of them because they are, really friends. It's who you spend your time with, and trying to ask them questions, have a dialogue, and see that it's one of those kind of smoke and mirrors thing. The popularity is not the end; it's a means to an end. What is the end? Is they want to be liked. They want to have friends. What does it take to have friends? What can you do to build your friendships? My son ran for student council. He didn't get elected. He was kind of bummed out about that. But you know what? He's a little bit introverted, and he's much more like he'll just sit and read a big book by himself, and be perfectly happy. Got the new Percy Jackson, and he's so stoked reading that. And there are times where I'm like, go out, hang out with your friends, and go do stuff. There's that neighbor down the street, that friend. I don't see you going to his house. And what my wife and I are trying to do is connect the dots. If you want popular, to be, because I want to be elected to student council. Okay, you want to be elected to student council, so you need to be more popular. Yeah, okay. How do you become more popular? How do you get, people to like you? Well, you got to spend time with them. You got to talk to them. You got to be nice to them. Now you have a conversation about what that looks like. And then that can be, more productive than it's just about the popularity. It's like find out what's underneath it, And I think, too, is just pointing out that if someone's just really social and not everybody's meant to be a social butterfly. It's okay to be introverted, that's fine. There's a lot of introverts who've done great things in this world, and sometimes that's what it takes. There are a lot of artists who just sit there, working on their painting for hours and hours, or Bill Gates or someone programming that aren't social butterflies, and that's okay too. To accept popular doesn't mean someone's more likable necessarily, or a better person, and trying to have them see that. So I about conversations and pointing to, what is the greater thing underneath the popularity. Something I would do. Any other questions? I am going to give a presentation on tech addiction in the fall, I believe. So that's been a crowd pleaser. So hopefully you'll come to that one too. And I've enjoyed having you all today. And again, if you have any follow-up questions,